Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. An exciting episode for you today. Anthony Power and I are going to be reviewing and analyzing big news out from IREN, Cipher, Digital, and of course DMG Blockchain. We've got a lot to talk about in today's presentation. A very exciting time to be in the sector. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comments section below which of these four companies you're currently holding and most excited about moving forward. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Okie doke, guys, away we go. Happy hump day, Wednesday afternoon, partway through the trading week here. Once again, the perfect storm for Bitcoin miners continues. We're seeing a sea of green really across the board. Some strength coming off this morning's trading where it was a different tale, really a lot of red. So we did a podcast earlier in the week talking about this perfect storm, the culmination of the AI re-rate, the Bitcoin price, the retail interest in the sector, and obviously all of these co-location HPC deals being announced. It appears CleanSpark CEO Matt Schultz agrees with our statement there, and we've actually seen some nice movement in CleanSpark as well. Now, before we get into the individual miners, you're back on the travel trail there, Anthony. You've made your way over to Dubai. How was the trip? How was the flight?
Yeah, it was a trip. Everything went like clockwork. Really nice flight, and going through customs took less than a minute. It's all just electric gates now. You put your passport in straight through. So it was very, very seamless, and I was in the hotel within 45 minutes of landing at the airport. So that goes to show, really pleased. And then, just get ready for the podcast tonight. So I'm in Dubai for the next 5 days, and here to catch up with a few people, followers. So if anyone's in the area, drop me a note if you want to have a catch up, and we can see if we can arrange something.
Yeah, I'm really happy you're able to go over there. I'm here in Calgary, Alberta. It's supposed to be 2 degrees Celsius and snowing this weekend. So I'm
Oh,
on stay-at-home dad duty. The school's on strike, and really wishing I was joining you in Dubai. We just talked earlier in the week also about our new broadcasting in 11 languages. So if you guys are tuning in from around the world, I know we've got a large international base as well. Make sure you
well,
check out that new enhancement.
Well, next week, Bryce, I'm off to Kazakhstan for a week, so that will be a very, very similar climate. I checked the weather temperature there. Today in Dubai, it's plus 33 when we landed. In Kazakhstan next week, it's going to be -4. So I've got a few warmer clothes to carry. I think I've even got my Bitfarms hoodie, which I'm taking with me to keep me warm out there. And but yeah, again in Kazakhstan for a week. Obviously. That's not as easy to get to, and in terms of meeting up with people, I'm going to be based in Karaganda, which is one of the main cities. But like Canada as a large country, Kazakhstan is another large country. You could put the whole of Europe in Kazakhstan. It's that big. It takes 4.5 hours to fly from one side to the other. Just to give you an indication of the size of it. So, in terms of in the world, it's the ninth largest country, and Australia is the country that's the one above Kazakhstan. So that tells you how big the country is. But I'm there for a week next week. If anyone's in Kazakhstan, in Karaganda area or Astana area, the capital, let me know, and we might be able to work something out.
There you go. Not too upset about sitting that one out. And enough with the geography here. You guys are here to talk about stocks, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin miners. Let's get into it. Bitcoin itself, a little bit of a stumble yesterday, quickly regaining that momentum, back up flirting with 124,000. Also worth noting, we've been above the $120,000 price for a sustained period now. So I know we got our highest weekly close ever this week, or I guess going into this week. Seeing a lot of strength here, really no sign of retreat.
Yeah, and your 5 day chart clearly shows, we've had those two all-time highs in the last few days. And, who's to say that we won't get another all-time high by the end of the week? It's looking fairly strong today. The lows aren't as low, and it's holding that ground above 120,000. Maybe we're in that position now where Bitcoin is going to start. A lot of the commentators and analysts have been saying the expectation is between now and the end of the year it's going to move. Well, we'd like to see it move a bit more, and it's certainly looking like it's getting ready for a move. We'll get the insight from some of these technical analysts and see if we can put that into one of our next few podcasts to give you an update on what they think is going to happen.
Yeah, we certainly will. We've been saying Q4 this year is generally where we think the top may be based on the projections we've seen. I went to lunch with a subscriber yesterday. He was saying based on a lot of the macro trends he's following, M2 supply, fiscal easing, lowering of interest rates, he's projecting maybe more like Q1 or Q2 of next year. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Obviously, we'll be here reporting on it the entire time. Now, speaking of strength, the Bitcoin miners, they were off to maybe not so great of a start this morning. Nothing exciting. You and I were doing some prep work, getting to your hotel, and you messaged me saying, take a look at the miners. They have reversed, taken off in a big way. It's once again a sea of green, really led once again by Soluna. But a lot of the stocks we've been talking about on the channel really seem to be caught in a great uptrend right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the volatility of Soluna over the last few months, I mean, we were talking only a couple of months ago, they were in breach of the Nasdaq rules with their share price lower than $1 for a sustained period. They've now successfully, regained that position, and they managed to achieve above $1 for 10 consecutive days. And so they put out a number of good updates. We've covered those in previous podcasts. Plenty of volume today, 20 million shares. That's double the average in terms. And bear in mind, when I say 20 million shares today, that's 20 million shares just a few hours after the open of the market. We haven't finished yet, but the normal average for Soluna over the last 3 months has been about just over 10 million shares traded each day. Cipher and Bitfarms, again, we talked about them relentlessly over these last few weeks in terms of the share prices. It's not just IREN having all the fun. Cipher and Bitfarms can join that club as well. Both of them effectively reaching 52-week highs, today, and lots of trade in there. If you can see the Cipher volume, 49 million, that's 10 million higher than their normal daily trading volume. Bitfarms, again, 81 million, but they've been that sort of 80, 90, 100 million shares literally every day for the last couple of weeks. So things are bubbling up there for Bitfarms. We just need that announcement now for Panther Creek, and I think we're off to the races again. But great to see the company with a market capitalization of over $2 billion. And bear in mind, a couple of months ago, when Riot was selling their shares, that market cap was closer to 500 million. So real big turnaround for Bitfarms. And, let's have a look at the heat map.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to bring this one up. You've added the full 1 year percent change on here. There's 5 total periods shown. We've talked about the importance of looking at multiple durations, but Anthony, it's getting pretty hard to find a red square on this table.
Yeah, they're few and far between now. And bear in mind, I've added an extra period, which is the 1 year change. And so even from 1 year perspective, there's a sea of green on there. There's only 5 red squares, literally out of the 75 that are being shown. So, great. And most of the miners, if you look at it, are green in every of those periods. IREN, 667% over the year. Cipher, 349% over the year. Hut having a fantastic run there. And I think Hut have been going under the radar a little bit, to be honest with you. We've been focusing on IREN, we've been focused on Cipher, Bitfarms having a rally. Hut have just quietly gone away and doing their business there. They've got the Vega site energized now. We saw the updates yesterday and we covered that on the podcast. 295% increase. Now remember, I was hearing from a lot of Hut shareholders, go back about 18 months ago, and they were disappointed in the lack of growth. You have to say, Asher and the team, since they've taken over, and Asher said, judge me after I've been in the job 9 months. Well, we've judged him and we gave him a great scorecard after that 9-month period, and they haven't let up. And now we've got the subsidiary ABTC out there as well. Everything seems to be going gold for HUT at the moment. They've got the Midas touch. Equally, Hive are having a great run this year. Look at the month change for Hive, 149%. Market capitalization, 1.3 billion. A lot of these miners are really, really doing well. And actually, we've covered these miners for the last 2 years, and I've been covering them on my own before that for the previous 3 years. And, it's just nice to see that the ones we've selected as part of the group are the ones that have really, really done well in the space. And I hope that, if people have managed to use some of that analysis to help them with their own due diligence, they've managed to make, a few dollars here and there on some of these miners, because believe you me, if you'd have bought in IREN, even if you'd have bought in IREN 5 months ago, you could be sitting on 600 or 700%. It was $5 back in April, and look at where it is today, $61.74. So really good position there. Every miner, if you look at a metric, is doing really well over these five periods, and let's see it continue.
Yeah, just incredible. All this analysis provided for free. All we ask in return is you take a second, you hit the like button. Helps get the content to new viewers, which obviously helps out the channel. If you want some additional behind the scenes information as well, based on our actual trades, we do a weekly recap each and every Friday under the channel members only video section. I think it works out to $3 a month, and you're able to see both of our trades and our portfolios. So maybe worth a look there as well if you're looking to take some profits or potentially look at our exit strategy here. Now, the other one I wanted to call out, we've been following the CoreWeave Core Scientific trade closely over the last few months. The vote is scheduled for this month. You've already put in your vote along with 2C's Capital. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, but also interesting to see CoreWeave CEO making a few comments about the anticipated top up, or maybe I should say lack thereof.
Yeah, and we'll just cover where we are today on the chart first, and we'll talk a little bit more about what the expectation is from the Core Scientific shareholders. But remember, back on that 7th of July, this was a $9 billion deal with an anticipated Core Scientific share price of $20.40. Now, we saw that indicative price go down from $20.40 all the way down to about $11, and things were looking really, really grim. We have seen recovery, and we have seen recovery both in CoreWeave share price and Core Scientific share price. If you look at the Core Scientific share price today, $17.34. If you look at the indicative price based on the CoreWeave share price today, that's $17.09. That's about as close as it's been since we've been covering these. And the indicative value of the contracts at the moment is 7.54 billion as opposed to 9 billion. So actually 80% there now, so we have another 20% to get closer, and the CoreWeave share price is on a quite a good rise today, so we might see further increase. We've seen the Core Scientific shares a price at over $18, but a lot of the retail investing in Core Scientific has been suggesting that, and analysts as well, and Wall Street been suggesting maybe CoreWeave ought to come back and offer some more money to the table, and we can put that one to bed now, because CEO Michael Intrater told Bloomberg this week that the agreement represents value for them, which shows CoreWeave is committed to the original terms, and therefore no additional funding is going to be provided. That might not go down too well with shareholders, but we've still got 3 weeks left before the vote. So literally 3 weeks from today, that's the deadline to get your votes in, and you're voting on the deal, and you're also voting on the actual remuneration package for each of the directors, which has been agreed at direct level, but needs to be agreed by shareholders. And we've already covered that on one of the podcasts. That referred to 3 of the senior directors in the team. That was the legal counsel, the CFO, and Adam Sullivan, the CEO. Their packages there, and I think there was a sort of a total combined of about 200 million. So shareholders need to vote on that deal as well. So we've got 3 weeks left. Let's see how the share price goes. But as I say, people have already voted. I've already voted. And let's see how we get close to that day, what happens. Now, if he thinks it's a great deal, then if the shareholders vote against it, he's got no problem carrying out the deal that was already in place there. And that's a 10-year deal, or sorry, a 12-year deal, to pay Core Scientific 850 million a year to deliver that contract for them, with a potential of 10 years of extension. So it's going to be an interesting time. We'll see how shareholders react if the share price gets higher, because CoreWeave have made some big announcements this week as well, and that's what's feeding into their share price. So, we've still got 3 weeks left. We've still got time to get close to that $20.40. Time will tell where we end up on this one.
Yeah, it certainly will. Also interesting throughout this process, and actually in the CoreWeave presentation related to the acquisition, disclosing some new megawatts or a larger pipeline for Core Scientific than we initially knew about. So that could potentially act as a catalyst for the company. If the vote does not go through, we may see some of that re-rate based on the additional pipeline, like we're seeing with some of these other companies. The next one we wanted to talk about, Bit Digital. So this is a two-parter. We'll follow it in sequential order. First and foremost, they've no longer put out their Bitcoin mining monthly report. They're looking to spin that off. Unfortunately, we just saw that happen with IREN as well. Not so much the spin-off, but stopping the monthly production reports. However, in the case of Bit Digital, they have started issuing a first-in-class Bit Digital Ethereum snapshot. So we wanted to walk through some of the highlights here, including the staking and rewards. Then we'll get into the second part of today's announcement.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they're putting out an operational update on Ethereum, which is great, because retail investors, they love these updates. They have a thirst for information, and it just keeps them, interested in the stocks that they own there and see how they're performing. So in terms of this update here, which was provided recently, the total Ethereum held 122,187. That has a value of 506 million at the time of the update. And they're staking 81% of that, so nearly 100,000 Ethereum is staked. They're getting a return on that there. So the rewards for the month, 291 Ethereum. That's based and probably on a price that's close to of 4,000, close to maybe $4,500 per Ethereum. So a nice amount of staking was well over $1 million coming through in terms of rewards there. And bear in mind, Bit Digital, as well as having all this Ethereum on the balance sheet, they have 27 million shares of Wi-Fi, their subsidiary. And, when you look at the market capitalization of Bit Digital, it is a bit of a head scratcher as to, weighing up both of these assets when you look at the values of each and then look at the market capitalization price.
Certainly is, and we've talked about the MNAV calculator. They're so nice to actually put that out on the website. Looks like still under construction. I guess broke the internet with some of those numbers, but we look forward to that coming back. Speaking of MNAV, we also covered their big convertible earlier in the month. They've now put that to work, buying more Ethereum, making a reference, I guess, to this race mentality that we've heard Sam talk about. He's back in the race car, looking good and loading up on Ethereum.
Yeah, and this 150 million has been used to buy a significant chunk of Ethereum. So we've just talked about what they had in their hodl of 122,000. I'm afraid that's risen now to over 150,000, 150,244. So they've gone and purchased 31,057 using the net proceeds from that 150 million convertible note. And Bit Digital's estimated MNAV was approximately $3.84 per share at the time of the pricing. Now, the initial conversion price of the convertible note is $4.16, which represents about an 8.2% premium to the MNAV at the time of pricing. And as you rightly say, Bit Digital is focused on expanding this Ethereum treasury, in a cost-effective manner, and even Sam came out. It's just a race to buy. And listening to some of the big analysts on Wall Street there, there's a feeling that the Ethereum price could, at some point in the near future, start getting value close to what Bitcoin is, and that would mean a price of around about $60,000 per Ethereum. And if that's meant to happen, that $4,200 what they paid for their Ethereum recently, that goes out the window, and we're talking some significant amounts of balance in their treasury.
Yeah, big numbers there. I don't know if the iPhone calculator has that many zeros for me, but I'll leave those calcs to you. Next up, and congrats, I should say, to Bit Digital. Really loving the marketing they're doing there as well. Next up, we have Cipher Mining. So a couple big updates from the heavy hitters here. Cipher, IREN, coming up as well. We talked yesterday about the fact IREN is no longer putting out the monthly production updates. We were concerned perhaps Cipher may have followed suit. It appears Tyler came through with the monthly update here. We got a great report from Cipher. I'll let you go through the numbers. Then we can talk about some of the visuals included in the update as well.
Yeah, so in terms of Bitcoin mined, and I refer to the part that's mined, 244 was mined in September. That's versus 236. That's an increase of 3%. September had a 30 days, so there's a day less mining. The reason for that there is the operational hash rate. It's gone up to 23.6. Now, bear in mind, last month it had reached 23, but it had significantly increased in August, so they weren't getting the benefit of the whole of the 23. They're probably getting close to the benefit of the whole of the 23 in September as they were all installed. And they've even added to that with a further 0.6 exahash. In terms of sales, obviously September, we've heard from Riot, there was, less opportunity to get some power sales, selling their power back to the grid. But Cipher Mining have managed to do that for the equivalent of about 7 Bitcoin, which was higher than August. So that's a 40% increase there. They actually put that as part of their Bitcoin mine, but I've separated it out because really power sales is a credit on their future energy bills. So not really classed as Bitcoin itself, although I've put in the comments there just to give you an understanding of how much that power sales was. It's the equivalent of about 7 Bitcoin. So round about, about $900,000. So not a small number. Month end operational power 437 megawatts, growing and growing and growing. And we've heard now from Tyler that really that 23.6 and the power used for Bitcoin mining is probably where they're going to be at. All future megawatts are going to be looked at moving towards supporting a HPC strategy. And as we've already highlighted, they've got one big contract already with FluidStack, supported by Google, and they have a number of other sites available for further co-location deals. In terms of fleet efficiency, this really impressed me as well. The fleet efficiency has gone down to 16.8. Only the likes of IREN and CleanSpark can better that. So having that low rate, having that cheap energy, and we know Cipher's one of the best energy rates of all the miners, that's going to give them some great margins. In terms of Bitcoin sold, they sold 158, but they've added to their hodl. So their hodl's gone up from 1,414 to 1,500 Bitcoin. That has a value at the end of September of 171.1 million versus a value of 153 million for their hodl at the end of August. So that's a 12% increase. And we always like to show Bitcoin hodl value versus market capitalization. It was worth 5.4% of the whole value in August. In September, that's dropped significantly to 3%, and that's because the market capitalization for Cipher has gone through the roof. They're now a $6 billion company, no longer a $2 or $3 billion company. They're in the 6 billion range there, alongside the likes of Mara, and not too far behind Riot, and probably about 40% of where the IREN market capitalization at the moment. So the miner's having a phenomenal run, and that's why these percentages have come down, Bryce.
Yeah, nice little update there, and great to see market cap share price on the rise. The other thing that was great to see is some of these high-res aerial images of Barber Lake. Now, we don't make a lot of mistakes on the channel. We have been calling this one Barbara Lake for about 2 years, so we are going to correct that. Barber Lake. You can see the scale here. You just made reference to the deal they signed, FluidStack Google. This is obviously at the Barber Lake location. Let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing here. This is massive development and really supports that huge co-location deal we just talked about.
It does, and you can see that the ground is obviously now being worked on. What we really need is we need to get some of these satellite images from our friends at some of the IREN retail investors like Franz and Agrippa. to see if we can get one of those satellites positioned to drill into this particular site, and just to highlight where the tap is for where they're going to get the water from, because I'm struggling myself at the moment. I can see the Maybach belonging to Tyler in the car park. That's looking really well. It's kept clean there. He's got someone cleaning it every day, but I can't see the water tap for the life of me. So maybe we get one of our good friends there, or Kama Sutra, one of the chaps there, to get that satellite shine on Barber Lake and see if we can get a bit more detail.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice if we could get some waterworks imagery as well? I will say, based on the proximity to Colorado City, good likelihood they're tied into civil water there, unlike maybe what we've seen at Corsicana with that large retention pool. So different strategies. However, we have talked with Jason and seen that the team is working on a civil tie into water there as well. Now, pivoting over to their second real focal point right now, Black Pearl. Again, some great images. You just made reference to the efficiency of this fleet. You can see the latest generation miners stacked nice and high in that location. And really, this is just the first phase of this project.
Yeah, it is. It's they've now fulfilled the first 150 megawatts of a 300 megawatt site. And, as Tyler says, this is at the moment now, they're not planning to increase any more hash rate there. I think they'll focus that remaining 150 megawatts on trying to land another co-location deal at that site there. And even, 3 weeks ago at the New York conference, I put the question to Tyler that if a deal came across where they wanted to use the whole of the site there at Black Pearl, he'd be prepared to move the machines out of there. And he said absolutely, because he has 600 megawatts pretty much available. He was quoting 450, but that 150 of mining that's already in operation, if the deal came across his table that meant he'd have to make that decision, he would be prepared to move those machines elsewhere. And so that tells you the impact of this new strategy. These co-location deals are a game changer. Where Bitcoin mining is so unpredictable, the predictability of HPC, the revenues, you've got a fairly good idea on the cost. The power costs generally are a pass-through cost to the client. So in the terms of CoreWeave, it's CoreWeave had to negotiate the power deal with the provider, not Core Scientific. And I believe the same's happened with all these other deals as well. Which means then that the risk on any power pricing changes throughout the year don't fall down to the miner. So it's a really good deal. If you're a Bitcoin miner, the power price goes up 200%. You've got to make some decisions whether you're going to switch off and hope the power price comes down. They'd have to do that with HPC. That's out of their remit. And also the fact that power's not as essential in terms of the amount of power to use for HPC as it was for Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining is very much power intensive. HPC is not as intensive, and therefore maybe not as much curtailment required.
Yeah, good point. And we've talked about the difference between the CSP and the colo strategy. If you want to grab more of the economics, as we've heard from Daniel Roberts, there's more risk involved with that, whether that be the variation in power pricing or the upfront capex for the GPUs. But ultimately, you do capture more of that value chain. We've got one of these nice little three-way Venn diagrams here. This deck, or slide, I should say, came out of the Fluidstack presentation. You can see their 2.4 gigawatt pipeline, really a multi-pronged approach focusing on that HPC AI, the grid optimization, and the Bitcoin mining or operations. Again, multiple different revenue streams, looking to bootstrap the HPC build out with the Bitcoin mining. And Tyler did actually make reference in one of his recent discussions to the potential of plugging GPUs in themselves, similar to what we've seen with IREN. Now, you mentioned an interesting comment there. You said we've seen the first deal from Cipher. If we look at the next slide here, talking about their power pipeline, they've broken it out into operational, under development, so on and so forth. You and I expect this is the first of many deals.
Yeah, they've got 3 sites there, which are queued capacity, all at 500 megawatts. So they're future-proofing their business there. And again, in Texas, some of them are very close to Austin, close to Dallas. and so therefore, ticking all those boxes that you require, it would not surprise me if we see, a number of deals from the likes of Cipher over this next 6 month period as that massive requirement for power continues. That's the bottleneck now in the US. It's actually the power that's going to be the issue. It's not so much the GPUs where people are thinking that, it's the power. How do we get from the 4 gigawatts that they're currently using for HPC to get to where it needs to be, which from Dan Roberts on the last podcast, he was suggesting it was over 30 gigawatts. That's a big difference. There's a lot of power there, and guess what? The miners have got the power.
Yeah, and I've seen some tweets saying that could get up to 40, 45 gigawatts worth of delta or gap there. So it seems to be insatiable demand. And really, with the CapEx commitments we've seen, the multi-year duration of these are really hard to slow this train down at this point. Now, we talk about a lot of the larger companies, the $1 billion, $2 billion, $5 billion, $15 billion in the case of IREN. We also like representing some of the smaller companies, the up-and-comers. Kind of nice to find these ones maybe before Wall Street or the institutions do. DMG has been one we've been beating the drum on for years now, talking about the fact that their net asset value, or the value of just their Bitcoin, actually exceeded their market cap for many months there. That's now changed. We're seeing the DMG share price really starting to take hold. They put out their production report as well. We'll walk through the numbers, then we can talk strategy.
Yeah, so another actually really good month for DMG. Remember DMG, we talk about those miners that are consistent, and we always hear the same names mentioned. We talk about the IRENs, we talk about the CleanSparks. This year we're talking more about Riot Platforms having a really good year. Currently, the top miner in that particular metric, DMG, actually a part of that group as well. They've been absolutely consistent, very rarely have a bad month. Yes, they have issues like every miner, but their production numbers for their hash rate are generally very, very good. Now, they mined 23 Bitcoin during the month of September, which was the same amount they mined in August. And again, when you look at difficulty and the day less mining, they still managed to mine the same amount of Bitcoin. The hash rate, the operational hash rate, so they do have about just over 2 exahash of energized hash rate, but they're not getting the benefit of all that at the moment. Their operational hash rate, which is what they are utilizing, was actually 1.65 exahash during September. That was a nice increase by 8%. That helped to get the same amount of Bitcoin mined. Remember, a day less is about 3%, and the difficulty will probably have an impact of 5-6%. So they're actually on a par with where they should be. Efficiency, again, good efficiency, 22.6. Not as good as maybe Cipher or some of the miners we've already mentioned, but remember the average a year ago was about 35. So we've seen some miners at 15, some at 35. DMG are there, sort of in the middle there, and if they add to their hash rate, they're only going to install the most efficient mining machines, so that efficiency will come down. In terms of selling, they only sold 5 in September, so they've added 18 Bitcoins to their hodl. They've increased it from 324 to 342. That's got a value of 39 million as at the end of September. And if we look at the Bitcoin hodl value to market capitalization, now remember 2 months ago, DMG's value of its hodl was about 104% of its market capitalization. I can tell you now that the market cap for DMG, like many of these other miners, has exploded in the last month. It's more than doubled. And as you can see now, 53%. Even with a bigger hodl value, it's down 27% on the previous month there. So you can see that the market price for DMD, the share's been doing really well. Investors will be quite pleased as well because it's starting to get recognition. An overall good update. In terms of Bitcoin mine per exahash, that's the final metric there, 13.9, I believe at the moment is the best we've seen of all the miners. So DMG might be having top spot. We still have Bitdeers to come through, but at the moment I think 13.9 is pretty much up there.
Yeah, just phenomenal. I'm a shareholder in DMG and I'm happy to see these results and the share price moving as well. I'm also happy to see some satellite images. So we may not have the waterwork images for Cipher, but we do have some satellite images of the Christina Lake facility for DMG. So similar to what we've seen with some of these other miners, a lot of interest from retail. We now have the DMG Blockchain Investors Group. They've really taken the lead here, coming up with some interesting and unique images, arguments, and I guess analysis of this company. So we wanted to give them a shout out as well. The other piece I wanted to mention here, some insider buying. So we've covered this extensively with Bitfarms. This is probably one of the most bullish indicators I've seen for a company. We've got directors converting RSUs into shares and some actually purchasing shares.
Yeah, and in terms of DMG, these are generally not RSUs that are given free. These are options where they'll pay, a fee for each of these shares. But you can see there across the directors there, a number of them buying, which is always a good indication. We saw that with Bitfarms, Ben Gagnon himself going out there making 2 or 3 purchases in recent months there. That share price, the confidence that shareholders have when the CEO goes out and buys shares and is prepared to put his money where his mouth is, that's what the shareholders want to see. And the same's happening with DMG as well now. And we've seen in that last month, the share price, literally double.
We certainly have. Now, the next one here, IREN, it was good to get an update from the boys. We weren't really sure what the Wizards of Oz have been up to recently. All kidding aside, we know there's been a tremendous amount of work going on at IREN. We talked about that extensively this week, this new GPU expansion. Obviously, this kind of stuff costs money. So they've come out announcing a proposed convertible note. We'll get pricing and more details on that tonight. Expect this one to be upsized and oversubscribed, similar to what we just saw with Cipher.
Yeah, so this is an 875 million principal amount due in 2031. And there's also the opportunity for an additional 125 million principal amount of notes. That will take it to $1 billion. And as we've seen with Cipher, when they went to the market, there was such an oversubscribed that they actually increased theirs from 1 billion to I think about 1.3 million. So maybe IREN, with all the sort of the fever for every ounce of information coming out from the company at the moment, maybe they also will be having an oversubscribed and maybe they can raise as well. Remember, these companies have a number of levers to use. If IREN are going out buying these, tens of thousands of GPUs and building these facilities that will house these GPUs, you've got to have money for that. And I think shareholders appreciate they've managed to use in the past the ATM to deliver that 50 exahash. Now they're looking at other opportunities in the market. And when you're using a HPC strategy, it does give you the ability to use more levers. If you were to go to an investor and say, I want to raise $1 billion because I'm going to increase my Bitcoin mining, you probably wouldn't get anywhere near this type of funding. That's why many of the miners have used the ATM, because institutions aren't interested in Bitcoin mining like they're interested in HPC. Now, IREN can go there and say, we already run a HPC service. We're looking to increase that significantly. And we have all these sites that we're building towards delivering that. We're going to need some money. And at the end of the day, it's a very, very marketable product they're trying to get funding for, and there'll be no shortage of people going in for this convertible note. So it'll be interesting. We'll probably cover, maybe tomorrow or Friday on the next podcast what the outcome of today's is. But at the end of the day, it's going to be at least $1 billion, maybe even more.
Yeah, I would bet my bottom dollar on the more or the over there. And great to see the tool belt expanding, so to speak. As your company gets up over $10-15 billion market cap, a lot more doors start to open. Now, I did want to make reference to yesterday's press release as well. We highlighted some of the key takeaways. Yesterday, we talked about this projected ARR essentially going up from $250 million to $500 million by the end of Q1 2026. Now, that's based on 23,000 GPUs. They also divulged yesterday not only are they on track for 60,000 GPUs in Canada, but if they were to leverage Horizon 1 and 2, they could actually get that up to 100,000 GPUs. So doing some rough napkin math here, Anthony, if you were to expand the GPU fleet from say 23 to 100, what could you expect in terms of, again, rough estimate ARR in terms of HPC revenue?
Well, you're going to have to suggest anywhere between probably 2 billion to 2.5 billion, because they've already turned around and said from the 23,000 GPUs that'll have operating by the end of Q1, the annualized revenue for delivering that will be about 500 million. Now, if they're able to bring in some of these high-end machines, it won't be a straight like for like. They'll be able to get higher revenue from these better machines, and therefore, as I say, certainly over 2 billion, heading towards maybe 3 billion in annualized revenue, and that will really be significant for the company. And then they've also got a couple of sites called Sweetwater, the best part of 2 gigawatts, which they're already working on now. Now Sweetwater 1 gets energized in April 2026 and Sweetwater 2 in 2027. So, not too far away behind the likes of Childress and Prince George. Those sites come online, and it's going to be a really, really interesting period watching this company grow. When you consider less than 4 years ago, it had half an exahash of mining as its main focus.
Yeah, real growth story. It's been so fun to be a part of this one. We talked yesterday also about the hiring frenzy they're on at IREN. So obviously this money is going to be used to buy those GPUs, build out these facilities, strengthen the bench at IREN, so to speak, in terms of staff, but looking to attract top talent, top level data centers, top level PUE ratings. We've talked about all that this week, and really a great step in the right direction. So obviously that hiring, attracting those top caliber people costs money, and you can see in terms of the use of proceeds section of the convertible note, specifically saying general corporate purposes and working capital. Now, right below that, you'll also notice they talk about the capped call transaction. This is something we've really seen as a standard in this sector. The ability of companies to limit the impact of dilution up until this cap price. Again, we'll have more details on that tonight, but great to see IREN is thinking about shareholders, thinking about dilution, and the potential impact of this raise on that investor group. Now, the last thing we wanted to leave you with here is a quote from Dan Roberts himself, talking about us living through this fourth industrial revolution, every past revolution being defined by factories and workers inside them. This time, though, being different inside. This is new AI factories. The workers are no longer people on assembly lines. They're now GPUs clustered together, never clocking off, never tiring, and able to scale to millions. So my question to you, we've heard, bears starting to come out saying, look, this is an AI bubble. There's no way this is sustainable. This is what we saw with .com back in 1999. Then we have CEOs, pioneers in the space saying, oh no, the demand for this type of compute is insatiable. There's tens of gigawatts worth of deficit. This is the fourth industrial revolution. Personally, I've got to side with Daniel Roberts. I think AI is going to really impact every single aspect of our life. But I wanted to get the expert opinion. Is this a bubble, or is this really the start of something bigger?
No, this is the start of something bigger, and we've seen this already. I mean, we've already seen the advent of the internet. If you look at the way technology as from our mobile phones, I mean, go back 15 years ago when people were using these small Nokia phones, and now majority of people either have an Apple phone or a Samsung phone. You can do your whole life on the phone in terms of your banking. You can buy things, you can pay for things. It's just the technology's there, and AI just takes it to another level. I don't think it's a bubble at all. I think this is just adding to what we've already got out there in terms of the technology, and who knows where it's going to take it. I mean, I've been using AI for the last couple of years. It helps me when I draft emails. make sure that they're professionally put together. So, it's just giving me a backup to that there. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that you can do. The graphics now that you see some of these AI packages, it's not going away. I even say to people, if you had a small business and you had to do some like a health and safety policy, you could get AI to complete that policy in a matter of seconds, and saving the labor of someone taking maybe 2 or 3 weeks to do the same thing by putting in all the requirements that you need. It is amazing technology, and people are embracing it. And you can see by the users, I think it was the fastest ChatGPT got 100 million users, far quicker than any social media platform. I think we're just at the beginning, to be honest, Bryce. I think we've got a long way to go. And people to understand what's out there, what the full iceberg looks like, not just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, good point there. Unfortunately, we're not quite at 100 million viewers yet, but we're well on our way, Anthony, and working towards it. I personally think of AI, HPC kind of as the easy button. It makes every aspect of my life better, easier, quicker. I think most people enjoy having an easier life, so I think inherently it's going to become more and more relevant. These companies are the picks and shovels, so it's a great spot to be. Let us know your thought in the comment section below. Is this a bubble, or is this the start of a multi-decade trend here? Which of these miners are you most excited about and why? Hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here tomorrow.